Hello, it's Debra Jason, the accidental artist with Creative Whispers of the Heart. Today I'm painting a silk scarf. It's 11 inches by 60 inches, and I'm using alcohol ink markers. I'm starting out with Cobalt Blue. These markers have a broad tip and a thin tip or a fine tip, and here I'm using the broad tip. Just lining up or outlining, you could say, a circle going along the hem there. And then I'm going to take, this is baby blue, and draw another circle. Always you will see me checking the second layer to see that the inks went through. Now I'm going to take isopropyl alcohol. You could use 91% or 99%, and you can see when I pour it down, the ink starts to bloom. I like to tap it with my finger to get it to spread a little bit more and create a little bit of texture. The cobalt always blooms so beautifully. Look at that. And again, I tap it, spread it, make sure it goes through both layers of the silk. I have this piece of silk folded in half. Now I'm just dotting. I'm using the fine tip of the alcohol ink marker and creating these little stars. This color, I believe I'm using the blue-gray marker here. I also have a cool gray, but this one's the blue-gray. And just going through and dotting the silk. Now I'm going to take the baby blue, again the fine tip of that, and again I'm creating these little dots, just tapping the marker down on the silk, making sure it goes through to both layers. Now I'm taking that cobalt blue and going around the circle where I formerly used the blue-gray just to create some contrast. Going through both, I want to add a little dot there and there. And you can see with the silk, sometimes the markers kind of grasp onto the fabric. So I'm trying to hold it down with one hand while I draw with the other hand. Now I'm using the broad tip of that baby blue marker and blending both those colors together with isopropyl alcohol and tapping away with my finger. I'm using a glove on my right hand and keeping my left hand free. It's a little easier for me to pick up the silk when I don't have the gloves on. And just blending the colors together, pouring on more alcohol and tapping it with my finger, dotting the edges of the hem. In this particular circle on the silk, I want the colors to blend together, just to create a pretty pattern. Now I'm just going to use dots. So here I'm using the cool gray alcohol ink marker, and I decide to go across the circle with little dots alternating in one direction and then the other. So from left to right and then kind of right to left. And you can see just dotting it, tapping it on the silk. Now I'm going to I think add a second color. I'm using the fine tip now for this baby blue and just interspersing some color in that circle. Now to create another circle. You can see again the fabric kind of grips the marker. I have to make sure on the second layer to go in there and get the marker to fill the space that I want to fill on both layers. Always checking the fabric, making sure it's one layer on top of the other fairly closely, adding alcohol and adding more ink with the marker. More alcohol. I always say in my videos, this is a pretty intuitive process. I'm just tapping the alcohol and the ink, and now I'm going to add some contrasting color using the fine tip of the Cobalt Blue. I really like the way that the Cobalt Blue just blooms when you add alcohol to it. You can see it there. It's a vibrant, rich blue. Again, going through to the second layer, so we're all good here. Tapping and making dots. They actually look like little stars when you put it down, but now I want that all to blend. And I just keep going around with my finger. And now I'm going to add again some of that Cobalt Blue. Look at it bloom. This kind of looks like a flower to me. It wasn't intentional, but I think that's what it looks like right now. So you can see it's kind of a rinse and repeat. Now I'm going to another spot to kind of create that same flower that I have down there on the bottom. Again, it wasn't intentional to create a flower, but I think that's what it looks like. So I'm going along here with the baby blue, tapping with the pen or with the alcohol ink marker, adding 91% isopropyl alcohol. And now going in there and adding a little bit more color using the broad tip side of that alcohol ink marker. You can see I use a lot of alcohol, and it's important that you remember to work in a well-ventilated area. Open windows, open doors. I also have an air purifier that filters out the organic vapors, the VOCs. Right now I'm doing a voiceover because you can imagine it's kind of hard to talk with a mask over your face. So when doing my scarves, I do wear a respirator. Respirators are not the most comfortable things to wear, but it's best to protect yourself against the fumes. And when you're using a lot of alcohol, as I am with the scarves, I find better safe than sorry. So here I'm creating that other flower, or what I think looks like a flower. Adding more alcohol there just to get those colors to blend a bit more. And everything seems to be going okay in both layers, so I'm going to continue on here. Laid down some Cobalt Blue. You can see this time I was using the fine tip of the pen. I go back and forth between the fine tip and the broad tip. and tapping away with my finger. Now I'm going to add some of those little dots, or what I think look like stars. When they start to spread on the silk, to me they look like stars. I like the sound of that. And so I'm just tapping it and going across from one side to the other. Filling the circle with little stars, and now adding stars that are cobalt blue around the gray ones. Always looking for contrast here and there. No particular set pattern. I've added another baby blue circle here, and I'm just adding some more alcohol, and I think I'm going to fill this circle with some little dots, what I'm calling stars. First I'm blending, and then I'm going to take my alcohol ink marker and just add some little baby blue stars. I'm using the fine tip of the pen. And now I'm actually turning it around and using the broad tip of the alcohol ink marker. Decided I wanted a little bit of a center circle in there, so I just added some ink from the marker and some alcohol. And now I'm going to take that gray and just create dots. With these markers, it's just a simple way to create some other patterns and not always have to just add alcohol and blend it, but to create a little bit more diverse, I guess is the word, a different design, just by tapping down the markers and creating these little stars. So I'm going to continue, almost done here. I'm at the end of, almost at the end of this piece of silk, and creating a cobalt blue circle. I did not have a drawing or a set pattern laid out in front of me when I started this. So I've said already, it's kind of intuitive. And as I continue to put down the inks, I just look at the patterns I've already created and see, what do I want to do next? So in this one, I decided this is where I want to blend the baby blue and the cobalt blue. You might remember earlier in the video, I did that sort of at the far right side of the silk. Now I'm doing it over here. The interesting thing with the markers is I was finding, hey, they don't really drip. I don't have any accidents when I do markers like I do sometimes when I'm dripping down ink from bottles or with brushes. But you'll see as I continue, I have to eat my words because I do have a mistake that happened, and you'll see how I corrected it. I'm laying down again some baby blue. I'm just using the 4 colors here, baby blue, cobalt blue, the blue gray, and the cool gray. Creating one of those, what I was calling a flower earlier. There it is, you see. I dropped a dot there. But as I move forward, you'll see how I fixed it. There was a dot and there's also a line of ink that fell on the silk, but we'll work around it. What I was saying when I dropped that dot was I'm creating another one of these little flowers, what I'm calling flowers. And now I'm going to think about how am I going to fix that little dot. So I'm taking my blue broad tip of the alcohol ink marker and going around that little blue circle that I accidentally dripped. And then baby blue around that. Using the broad tip of the baby blue, and now I feel like, hey, I did a pretty good job of fixing that. So I'm going to go down below and take the baby blue and create some dots with that. That tip wasn't working. There we go. I found that the fine tip wasn't laying down ink, so I turned it around and used the broad tip here. And now I'm trying to do what I did with that mistaken little blue dot above. Now I'm doing the same thing on purpose with the baby blue alcohol ink marker. There's that line I got on the silk by mistake, so I'm going to see how I can fix that. Starting with that baby blue marker. The line that I drew accidentally there was cobalt blue, so now I'm going to cover that up with the cobalt blue marker. And let's see how I can fix that mistake. Kind of cool thing about alcohol ink markers is usually you can fix your mistake one way or another. So you can see I'm blending the baby blue and the cobalt blue. Tap, tap, tapping with the markers, and now pouring down some ink and getting it to bloom. Ooh, look at it. I just love the way that cobalt blue spreads. In the alcohol ink world, we call it blooming. But it seems like that cobalt blue really does it well. I think by now you get the picture of what I'm doing with the markers and how you too can create a scarf using alcohol ink markers. Here's how it came out. It's been washed in cold water and vinegar and iodized salt, soaked for 15 minutes. You can see one of my other videos that talks about the vinegar process. And here's the final product, a beautiful silk scarf painted with alcohol ink markers. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll share it, comment below, or like it. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a million for watching.